Authorities confirmed a second fatality from Monday's car ramming attack in Leipzig as investigations continue to uncover a motive. An explosion at a fireworks plant in the central Chinese province of Hunan has killed at least 21 people and injured dozens more, according to state media reports.
The European Commission will gradually eliminate the use of Chinese-made inverters to protect critical energy infrastructure from possible cyber threats.
People in the eastern German city of Leipzig held a candlelight vigil to mourn victims of Monday's car ramming attack, which killed 2 people and critically injured 2 others. The driver, a 33-year-old Leipzig-born German man, was arrested at the scene, and officials said his motivations remain unclear. The car careered from a major square in the Old Town, down a busy pedestrian shopping zone, traveling hundreds of meters. Prosecutors have opened a case on suspicion of 2 counts of murder and at least 2 counts of attempted murder. Police said late on Monday there was no evidence to suggest that the incident was politically or religiously motivated. According to German media, the suspect had already been known to police, albeit not for relevant offenses. Officials say they believe he acted alone, adding that he represents no further danger to the city. An explosion at a fireworks plant in the central Chinese province of Hunan killed at least 21 people and injured more than 60 others, according to reports on state-run media on Tuesday. Aerial footage showed white smoke still billowing above certain areas of the site, even after firefighters had been fighting the flames for hours. The fires burned several buildings down to ashes, while many others collapsed or suffered severe damage. Nearly 500 rescue workers were deployed to the scene to extinguish the blaze, carry out search and rescue operations, and evacuate residents in close proximity to the plant. Authorities are still investigating the cause of the blast, but have preliminarily detained the person in charge of the company. Chinese President Xi Jinping ordered a full probe into the incident to be carried out diligently and expeditiously, and instructed local officials to make every possible effort to save lives. Authorities warn the death toll is likely to climb as rescue operations continue.
The EU's Trade Commissioner is set to meet his US counterpart on Tuesday in Paris amid rising tensions over tariffs. EU Trade Chief Maroš Šefčovič is scheduled to meet US Trade Representative Jamieson Greer a few days after the US President said a 25% tariff would be placed on cars imported from the EU. Sources told Euronews, however, that Tuesday's meeting was planned prior to Trump's latest tariff threat. The move would be in breach of a US-EU trade deal that was agreed last summer, which caps US tariffs on EU goods at 15%. It led to the European Commission reiterating on Monday that if the US takes measures that are inconsistent with the deal, all options would remain open. Trump's threats followed criticism from German Chancellor Friedrich Merz over the US's stance on Iran, and came as Washington announced it would withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany.
US President Donald Trump's decision to slap 25% tariffs on EU cars is politically motivated and aimed squarely at German car makers, German MEP Bernd Lange, chair of the European Parliament's Trade Committee, told Euronews on Monday.
This is a political decision. He is really angry against Germany. We just heard it. And I'm convinced that in this context, he also targeting specifically German car manufacturers. And this will perhaps lead to an extra tariff volume from about 15 billion. So that's really serious. And of course, there are no legal or no economic reasons for that. This is really politically against Germany.
Lange's remarks come days after Trump announced the tariffs, following criticism of the US war in Iran by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. The US president has accused several European countries of refusing to contribute to Washington's military operations against Iran. If enacted this week, the measures would breach the 15% ceiling agreed under a trade deal struck in July 2025 between Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. Longer expressed doubts about the agreement, which was reached after weeks of trade tensions between Europe and the US following Trump's return to power and the launch of a nationalist trade agenda. I'm not sure that we can really go on, Longer said of the deal.
Armenia on Monday hosted the 8th meeting of the European Political Community, an informal, all-inclusive format that began soon after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, currently at the center of a geopolitical controversy after declaring that Iran had humiliated the United States in the war, was the most notable absentee. Meanwhile, his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney's attendance was the first time a non-European leader took part in an EPC meeting. Carney defended a rules-based global order anchored in freedom, rule of law, democracy and pluralism.
Now, we have to actively take on the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. We know nostalgia is not a strategy, but we don't think that we're destined to submit to a more transactional, insular and brutal world.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was also present and held several bilateral meetings with European leaders, including British Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He urged leaders to avoid the example set by the US and oppose any sanctions relief for Russia. Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the summit, EU chief Ursula von der Leyen met with Starmer to discuss London's plan to participate in the €90 billion support loan for Ukraine that Brussels adopted last month.
The European Commission will gradually eliminate the use of Chinese-made inverters in EU-funded energy projects, a step aimed at protecting critical energy infrastructure from possible cyber threats that could trigger from power outages. The move follows warnings from analysts that Europe's heavy reliance on Chinese-made solar inverters could pose risks to Europe's power grid stability, especially as Europe relies more on renewable energy. The findings indicated that certain countries could, in a worst-case scenario, undermine European energy infrastructure, potentially even triggering blackouts, an EU official said, referring to China, Iran, North Korea and Russia. Inverters are a relatively small but crucial component in modern energy systems. They play a critical role in converting and regulating the flow of power from renewable sources, such as wind and solar, as well as storage systems. While Chinese manufacturers currently dominate the global inverter market with an estimated 80% share, the Commission considers that sufficient alternative supply capacity exists among producers in countries such as Japan, South Korea, Switzerland and the United States.
Einerseits beklagen sich wirklich viel über die Sauberkeit, also die sind eher erschrocken über die Verschmutzung. Die Verkehrssituation empfinden viele auch als sehr schwierig. Zugausfälle, S-Bahn-Ausfälle, überfüllte Busse und das sorgt für viele auch für Frust.
Das Problem, wenn ein Hotel da gebaut wird, die Leute wollen auch schlafen und wenn diese Fenster in Richtung zum Club gehen, dann ist eben die Gefahr da, dass da Lärmanzeigen kommen und dass über kurz oder lang der Club schließen muss.